While holding the crown with cotton tweezers, carefully loosen the crown forceps until you can pick up the restoration with the tweezers. Carefully transfer and place the restoration onto a firing tray or pin. Using a highly accurate and well-maintained furnace is always recommended for stain and glaze firing. A furnace that is out of firing calibration as little as 20 degrees Celsius can change the appearance of the restoration. VITA furnaces have self-calibration features that help ensure accurate firing temperatures. The fired restoration is allowed to cool on the furnace platform for at least 30 seconds or until any red glow dissipates. Remember to always use furnace tongs, hemostats, or tweezers when placing or removing a firing tray from a glazing furnace. After firing the restoration, you should see a gray appearance to the restoration. The results of using a blue or violet stain in effect lower the values by toning down the brightness. This is noticeable when you compare the stained restoration on the left to a glazed-only restoration of the same shade and value shown on the right. The amount of this type of stain applied will correlate to the amount of decreased value needed. However, using too much blue-violet stain will also reduce the amount of chroma and possibly change the hue of your restoration, so only use the amount of stain necessary to achieve the aesthetic value. Another common use of stains is to create and mimic natural occurring calcification spots. This is often true when trying to match a single ceramic restoration that needs to blend into the surrounding dentition. Again, start out by applying a thin layer of glaze to the restoration. Calcification spots usually have a whitish look and can be duplicated using Akzent stain number 1, a birch or white-colored stain. Because of the intensity of a white stain, apply a small amount at a time. Calcification areas are often halo or spotty shaped. Apply stain with the tip of the brush in a stabbing motion. If you don't like what you see, steam clean the crown and start over. Make sure that you always use a clean brush. After the desired stain effects have been applied and you are happy with the results, the restoration is ready for furnace firing. Sometimes it may be difficult to transfer the restoration from your ceramic forceps to the furnace without dropping or touching the crown with your fingers, so use the appropriate furnace accessories. Carefully transfer the restoration onto a firing tray and place on firing platform. Use the appropriate manufacturer's firing cycle for staining to assure an ideal surface look. After the crown is fired, you can inspect the results and determine if calcification spots will blend in naturally. As you can see from the fired crown, the white effect can be very concentrated. By using a small thin brush, delicate and subtle nuances can be applied for any desired effect. If the appearance is incorrect, either add additional white stain or carefully sandblast the stain off. Clean the crown and start over with a clean brush. Another type of characterization is to replicate a crack in a tooth. Often referred to as a craze line, adding this effect to the facial of an anterior restoration is delicate but very achievable. As always, lightly glaze the restoration with a small number 0 brush. Craze lines and/or tobacco stains are observed as very thin and almost intrinsic. It is always desirable to duplicate a craze line when the restoration is being layered to achieve the optimum effect. However, a craze line can be added by using extrinsic stains and have a natural look. Numerous Akzent colors are suitable for this purpose. Select an appropriate stain color and use the tip of the brush. Draw the stain down in the area to replicate a crack. After the desired effect has been achieved, fire the restoration using the appropriate firing cycle. A variety of natural occurring characterization effects, shading, and colors require replicating on individual restorations. We have only explored some of the most common. No matter what the effect is you are trying to simulate, the quick application of stains is highly achievable and can be the noticeable difference in achieving natural aesthetics. Glazing all ceramic or PFM restorations can be quick and easy when basic techniques are followed and utilized. Two methods of glaze application can be used: brush or a spray technique. The application of powdered glaze brushed onto a restoration has been highlighted in Chapter 1. In this chapter, we will explore the alternate use of a spray-on glaze that can be applied quickly, accurately, and save valuable time. Due to the delicate nature of a ceramic restoration and the possibility of dropping a crown during the glaze and staining procedure, it is highly recommended to use a ceramic forceps to hold the crown. This is easily achieved by inserting the tips inside the crown and then tighten by adjusting the thumb screw so that the restoration can be turned upside down without the crown falling off. It is important not to over-tighten the forceps. The alternative to the technique of brushing on glaze, the Akzent glaze material is also formulated in a convenient spray can. The glaze is formulated with an aerosol for quick and even dispersal onto a restoration. Prior to use, the can is shaken for approximately 5 to 10 seconds. After the spray glaze can is shaken, place the nozzle of the can approximately 6 to 8 inches away from the restoration. Depress the nozzle to apply. Make sure that you use an appropriate face mask and use the suction unit for ventilation. Slowly rotate the restoration around as to achieve a uniform thickness to the entire crown. As the crown dries, you will notice a white coating on the crown. This allows you to visually inspect the restoration for any missed spots in glaze thickness. A thicker coating will achieve a higher glaze surface, and a thinner coating will produce a lower gloss and texture. If additional glaze thickness is required, continue to spray the crown until desired uniform thickness is achieved. The restoration is now ready to be fired. To help stabilize a ceramic restoration onto a firing pin, the use of a firing material like quick peg is highly recommended. Squirt the quick peg material into the crown and fill the intaglio halfway. While holding the crown with the cotton tweezers, carefully loosen the crown forceps until you can pick up the restoration with the tweezers. Carefully transfer and place the restoration onto a firing tray or pin. Use the appropriate firing cycle to assure an ideal surface look. As you can see from this fired crown glazed using a spray technique, the results are very aesthetic. Depending on the desired appearance, this firing technique only takes 4.5 to 6.5 minutes of furnace time. You can also use the spray technique with stains. Stain the crown with the desired effects, let the stain dry under a furnace opening, then apply the spray glaze as normal. It's only a matter of deciding what works best for your environment. When glaze firing of a restoration is not an option, mechanical polishing is a quick method of bringing out the beautiful luster of the crown. Before any mechanical polishing is performed, any contour adjustments should be made to the restoration using appropriate ceramic discs, fine diamonds, or stones. Gently hold the restoration so that the margins are protected at all times. The use of the plaster die may help, but care must be taken to avoid any damage. The first step to mechanical polishing is to use suitable rubber wheels and points. Start with a medium coarse or pre-polishing type wheel. With care as to not damage the margin area, slowly polish over the entire restoration in a circular or rotational direction. Use minimal pressure so not to overheat the crown. After the use of a medium coarse rubber wheel, repeat the procedure using final or fine coarse rubber wheels and points. As the polishing continues, you will notice the crown becoming more refined with a luster that is close to a glazed look. When you feel that the surface has a texture you are looking for, stop and look at the appearance. If additional polishing is required, continue with either the medium coarse and/or finer polishing wheels as needed. After the restoration has the desired surface texture and/or effect, you will want to use a ceramic polishing paste to further enhance the glazed look. Use a soft bristle brush with liberal amounts of diamond restoration polish compound and begin to polish the ceramic restoration. Again, you want to polish in a circular motion to prevent unnatural polish striations. Make sure that you do not overheat the restoration. Repeat procedure using a fine felt wheel with the diamond compound. Throughout this polishing procedure, You will want to stop and evaluate the texture and gloss effects. Wash off the excess polishing compound and use a finger to rub across the axial walls to determine if the surface is smooth and to visually inspect the gloss and luster. Repeat polishing procedure as needed. Correctly mechanically polishing restorations can be a quick method to achieve a glazed appearance when furnace firing of the crown is not an option. Mechanically polished restorations will have a smooth but slightly textured surface that will bring out the color and shading of the ceramic material. This method works well to achieve aesthetics in the posterior or anterior region. There are times when a tight proximal contact area needs minor adjustment. But what if the restoration needs a contact surface added? A quick method of adding a contact is the use of glaze or corrective powders. Glaze powder can be used when the contact is minimal or slightly open. The contact can be added during the stain and/or glaze firing cycle by adding a thicker layer of glaze at the contact point. Any tight contact can be rubber wheeled to fit. If the contact area is completely opened and the crown has already been glaze fired, the use of corrective powder is warranted. This low-fusing porcelain will enable you to add a contact surface without disrupting the existing stained and glazed surface. This chapter will cover the basic procedure of adding a contact using corrective powder. Corrective powders come in several neutral colors that are color-matched according to the restoration shade. The corrective powders are mixed with porcelain modeling liquid. You will want to mix the powder and liquid together using an appropriate spatula. As you mix the corrective powder, you want to prevent spatulating air bubbles into the mixture. You can achieve this by mixing the powder without whipping. If the mix is too runny when you tilt the tray, blot using unscented and non-lotion tissue paper. Continue mixing or blotting until the mix can be picked up with a brush or spatula without dripping. You are then ready to add your contact with corrective powders. Due to the delicate nature of a ceramic restoration and the possibility of dropping a crown during the glaze and staining procedure, it is highly recommended to use a ceramic forceps to hold the crown. This is easily achieved by inserting the tips inside the crown and then tighten by adjusting the thumb screw so that the restoration can be turned upside down without the crown falling off. It is important not to over-tighten the forceps. First, use a small number 0 brush to wet the contact surface with modeling liquid. Next, use a larger size brush, like a number 2, and pick up an ample amount of mixed corrective material with the tip of the brush and apply to the surface of the contact area using a vibrating motion. Slowly draw the material across the contact area to obtain coverage. Be sure to slightly overbuild, as this material will slightly shrink. Settle the material by slightly tapping or vibrating the handle of the crown forceps with another metal instrument. Then use the brush in a sweeping motion to feather edges of the material into the contour of the restoration. If the mixture surrounding the contact area runs, use a tissue to blot the excess moisture. After blotting, use the brush tip to again feather the edge of the contact out to blend with the surrounding contours. The restoration is now ready for firing. The lower temperature firing cycle will ensure that the contact area will not excessively shrink. Because of the special low firing corrective material properties, a furnace with vacuum is to be used. Be sure to use the firing cycle specific to corrective powder firings. Check the restoration on the model to determine if the contact area is closed. Additional contact correction can be added with corrective materials and fired as before. If the contact area seems too tight, adjustment can be made using rubber wheels and porcelain diamond polishing compound. For more information, visit VDent online at www.vdent.com.